Okay. So last week, right about here, there was an attack by, let's just call them terrorists of some sort, militiamen that shot, I'm imagining, crude ballistic missiles, which these days are actually getting pretty easy to make, apparently, at a base that the United States claims was in Jordan, but the militants claim that in fact the base was in Syria. The United States refuses to admit that those troops were in Syria. I don't see any reason. Well, I guess the militants might not have wanted to anger Jordan, but I tend to take the militants' word more legitimately in this particular case than the U.S. government. Apparently, 3 troops died. All National Guards troops from Arizona. By the way, I've known a National Guard person or two from Florida who got deployed to the same area. Why they are using National Guard troops is something I'm kind of curious about, because there seems to be a pattern there. Maybe there's just not enough troops to go around. National Guard's troops are not supposed to be deployed overseas. That's an issue. But that's besides the point. Within minutes or an hour at most, Lindsey Graham is on Twitter and on TV beating the war drums against Iran. The United States claims that these groups are Iranian-backed. What exactly they mean by backed, I don't know. Later on in the week, Lloyd Austin admits that they have no evidence that Iran was involved in any way in directing the attacks. You see the language in the media and in the public statements change from these groups being Iran-backed to being Iran-linked. And I think the admission came out, don't quote me on this, that there's no evidence that these groups are even being funded or armed significantly by Iran. In fact, some of them are probably being armed by people in Iraq or even the government of Iraq. That's my theory. But we went through this exhaustive process all week of speculation, public statements telegraphing our intentions, moving the goalposts from retaliation directly against Iran. By the end of the week, they're saying, oh, we don't want war with Iran, which is probably a good idea. Overall, the administration seemed extremely indecisive, unsure of what to do, why they didn't have, I'm sure in the Pentagon, shouldn't there be all of this gamed out? What are you going to do if there's an attack here and there has to be a response? I mean, we have military planners, right? That's what military planners do, and they take it very seriously. I guess this wasn't gamed out. Either that or, the administration is so disliked that no one wanted to help them with a game plan. I don't know. The administration has, in one ear, people like Lindsey Graham. In the other ear, probably reasonable people from the Pentagon saying, look, if you attack Iran directly, we have thousands of soldiers in the Middle East that we cannot protect because the Iranians have real weaponry. They are a near peer, if not a peer, power of the United States. And it would be bad for the United States. It would make us look, it would just be a disaster. So the administration looked extremely indecisive and unsure of itself. And finally, we get the response yesterday. After the stock market closed, which I heard was a significant factor in the timing of this. If you're timing military attacks based on the stock market, you don't have your priorities straight. It just shows that this whole thing was about nothing but optics. First of all, if you don't attack within 24 hours, at least, you're not going to be able to have an effective retaliation response because all the potential targets will have hightailed it at that point, which is what happened. Several bases, or a few bases, I think like two or three bases in Syria, supposedly, that were terrorists, or I don't know about ISIS, but whatever the bad guys are now, whatever they call them. A couple bases were hit. Supposedly, most of those bases were largely empty. That's what I'm hearing. Some spots in Iraq were hit, including the headquarters of the Popular Mobilization Forces. So they're saying PMF. The PMF was hit. I think it was. It's all over. It's verified that the PMF headquarters was hit. Where is maybe it says here where the headquarters is at. Headquarters, Baghdad. Oh, maybe it wasn't the headquarters, because I don't think anything in Iraq Baghdad was specifically hit. But a regional headquarters of the PMF somewhere was hit, and people died. But what's interesting about that is the PMF, according to Wikipedia, which I would always say take with a grain of salt, because the CIA and other government intelligence agencies and even non-government civilian intelligence groups have a lot of influence on this Wikipedia. I say that a lot. It's a fact. But if Wikipedia admits that the PMF is backed by and recognized by the Iraqi government, and we attacked a group, basically a militia that is backed by the Iraqi government. I guess they were recognized in 2018 because of their assistance it was basically a hodgepodge of different local militias, which Iraq has always had a lot of, except for some time maybe under Saddam Hussein. Iraq has always had all these militia groups. The PMF is, from my brief understanding, which I'm not by no means an expert, it is a hodgepodge of militia groups that came together during the ISIS battles in the late 20-teens, or throughout the 20-teens, and they were finally recognized by the government and became government, I guess, backed to an extent, maybe funded to an extent, equipped to an extent by the Iraqi government. And we attacked their regional headquarters. Now, according to Wikipedia, some of these groups are linked to Iranian Shiite groups or have some links to Iran. Who knows what that actually means? Maybe they just took a telephone call one day from some rando in Iran. Who knows? You don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying, question all of these things. Take everything you hear about this situation with a grain of salt, even what I say. I'm just giving a different perspective here. But apparently, the Iraqi government's not happy about it. Now, my videos the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the Iraqi government is pissed off. They want the United States out. And as I said a week or two ago, they're obviously concerned that their country's going to become a war zone again. And they want no part of it. All right, from what I can see. Okay. And the Iraqi government's coming under, I'm sure, under a lot of political pressure to get the United States out. And so this is going to be an ongoing issue this year. I think it's going to come to a head this year. But the Iraqi government, first of all, they say, somewhere they said, yeah, this is a good one. Iraq reiterated its refusal to let its lands be, and this is Iraqi state news agency, by the way. This is the headline of this. It's on the map. Minister of Foreign Affairs delivers an official memorandum of protest to the U.S. charged d'affaires. That means the U.S., the local U.S. representatives, the local U.S. diplomatic representatives. I love this. Iraq reiterated its refusal to let its lands be an arena for settling scores between opposing countries. Okay. Our country is not the appropriate place to send messages and show force between opponents. And the government will make every effort required by a moral, national, constitutional responsibility to protect our land, our cities, and the lives of our children. Think of the children, both civilians and security forces in various forms. They denounced the American aggression that targeted Iraqi security forces as well as civilian sites. So the security forces they're talking about are the Popular Mobilization Front, which are a recognized part of Iraq's security forces, as well as civilian sites, they say, in the Askashat and Al-Qaim areas, which led to the deaths and injuries, which led to the deaths and injuries, including civilians, in addition to the damage of residential buildings and citizens' property. So it seems like, according to what the Iraqi government is saying, they just attacked Iraqi security forces and civilians, and that was the response of the United States to these attacks last week. They just bombed random shit, apparently. Just a complete obvious attack. It's just obviously just completely political. Killing civilians, by the way. Just, this reminds me kind of when the 13 Marines were killed in Afghanistan, and within like a couple days, they bombed this convoy in Kabul of civilians, and they had to admit later on, they said, of course, oh, those were the militants that were part of the attack on the 13 Marine, the bombing. Back towards the end, the evacuation of Afghanistan, they had to admit later on that they were all civilians, and that was a misfire, that was incorrect targeting. And here we have them, the United States government, just bombing. So this is the way I see it at this point. They bombed perhaps sites in Syria that maybe it's possible some of these forces linked to the attacks in it, either directly or tangentially, were at those bases at one point. But by the time the attack occurred on Friday, by the time the United States finally got around to attacking on Friday, I'm hearing there was nobody there. I think they got some sort of ammunition storage place as well. I saw some secondary explosions on one video. It looked like it's mostly small arms, maybe some RPG storage, nothing major, not even missiles, because it would be larger explosions. So basically, the United States just bombed random useless shit and killed a few civilians and Iraqi security forces in order to appear like they're retaliating. And the only people in the world that is convincing of anything is people in America. And that's obviously who the target audience is. But it's not going to deter anybody in the Middle East, because we didn't actually strike anybody and actually cause damage to anything in the Middle East. Any assets that were a threat to us. So it's not going to deter shit. And the Iraqis are getting, I can see the Iraqis, government that is, getting more and more pissed off. And in a volatile, sectarian country like Iraq, the government is going to be under intense pressure to really put its foot down. And if they're not able to get the United States out of Iraq, Iraq's going to fall apart. It's going to start having some serious problems. So the United States would be wise to get out of Iraq unless it wants another insurgency there, another civil war there, like the one we caused in 2003. I think they would be wise to get out of there, but they're going to drag their feet. And then there's going to be more random attacks. I mean, there was, I think, already some random attacks against U.S. forces. Didn't deter shit. It was the most weak, indecisive, incompetent response to a terrorist attack I have ever seen. It was really sad. And that's where we're at, America. Don't forget that this terrible leadership in D.C., in the White House, and in Congress, don't forget this. I'm telling all my fellow Americans this right now. Don't forget that that leadership is a reflection of the entire society. It's a reflection on you. It's a reflection on me, okay? Because this is a democracy, right? These are our best and brightest in D.C., right? In the Pentagon, right? It's an embarrassment. Everybody should feel embarrassed right now. And I'm anti-war. But what I'm saying is, if you're gonna talk all week about doing something like, decisive as a deterrent, and then you do that, it just looks really bad. It doesn't deter shit. It makes your assets in the region more insecure. Obviously, they should just all be taken out right now. Obviously, that's the only real solution to this. But it's just a reflection of how bad the leadership is in the United States, which itself is a reflection of the broader cultural malaise that is causing the disintegration of our entire civilization right now. And we're seeing it in real time. This is the third century crisis of the United States. Okay, to the map. Ilhan Omar is conning her base, her allegedly left-wing base. We know that they're fake leftists. Only a fake leftist would care what Ilhan Omar has to say, but she's conning her base into supporting imperialism. She is getting involved in the Somaliland affair, basically saying Ethiopia, Somaliland shouldn't make independent decisions, even though Somalia has not been an actual functioning nation for 30 years. Apparently, she thinks that Somaliland should obey what people say in Mogadishu, even though it's a completely dysfunctional state. She's basically serving the interests of the deep state right now. She also had something to say about Bukale earlier this week, and a lot of people clowned on her for that. She's obviously running cover for the deep state. She's attacking right-wing leaders and getting involved in the Ethiopia affair on behalf of the deep state. And, it seems like they use these left-wing people like Ilhan Omar to go after right-wing political figures in the world that they don't like. And then they use the right-wing people like Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio to go after people like Venezuela. It's a big game. It's a big con, all right? And just see it for what it is. Let's see what happened in Congo. DRC, he pleads, Shiki, I gotta learn how to pronounce this guy's name. Shisekedi, pleads with African Union to sanction Rwandan officials. I guess he's saying that something's got to be done about Rwanda. Basically, what's happening is Rwanda is sending their active duty military over to Congo, and they cross over the border and they say, we're part of this group M23. I've never been in the Rwandan military. They're lying. And they're causing problems over there. And the president of Congo is saying, hey, UN, hey, African Union, do something about Rwanda. So this is kind of a direct sort of statement saying this is Rwanda's fault. So that's interesting, and we'll see how this goes. I like to pay attention to this area for very personal reasons, and we'll leave it at that. Uganda disowned basically the dissent, in the ICJ ruling. The Ugandan judge was one of the few judges to basically take Israel's side in the ICJ ruling. And basically, the Rwandan government came out like the next day and said, "We disown we disavow, disavow." So that was interesting. South Sudan has been a hot spot this week. There's been violence there. UN peacekeepers were killed, so let's keep an eye on that. South Sudan has been, the United States has been involved in Sudan. This whole region in Africa, basically, this whole region, the Sahel region, is going to continue to figure prominently in global geopolitics for the foreseeable future. Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso say they are leaving the ECOWAS, East African Economic Union, basically, or West African Economic Union. They say they're leaving it. I didn't realize they were still in it. Senegal is having some political issues right now for the first time, apparently, since the country got independence. Something to keep an eye on. Venezuela. They outlawed the opposition candidate. They're accusing her, among other things, of being a U.S. toady, I guess, which is possible. U.S. says, okay, if you don't allow if you don't allow the opposition lady to run for president, we're going to sanction you. So basically, what's happening here is it looked like, the United States was willing to set aside some differences in order to get oil from Venezuela starting last year. But now the United States is kind of saying, well, part of the conditions, so United States and Venezuela were in talks to start trading oil again and having U.S. oil companies develop the oil fields in Venezuela. But part of the conditions of this, the United States said you have to allow a fair election with opposition. Well, the Venezuelans, for their reasons, which you can read in the article linked here, they decided that their court decided this lady is no good, we're getting rid of her. So they may be right, they may be wrong, I don't remember the details, but it seemed to me, I always have the suspicion, this is Venezuela. She's got to be linked to the United States somehow. And they don't trust the United States and Venezuela, for better or for worse, for the right reasons or wrong reasons. They just don't. El Salvador, his re-election is coming up. This is just basically a hit piece from Associated Press. And I just wanted to point out to people that Bukele is extremely popular in his country because he's brought about a serious turnaround in the crime situation. And it seems like the United States is not happy with that turnaround. And I just don't, I think that they say it's a human rights issue. I mean, I never believe the United States when it complains about human rights because, then why would they support what's happening in Gaza, right? If they actually cared about human rights, then they will use human rights when it's convenient, right? So they don't like Bukele for some other reason. This is a hit piece. Like I said, Ilhan Omar is getting on his case. So it's all bullshit. But we'll see how, we'll see if they, if a regime change operation is allowed to get hold in Little El Salvador. So far, it hasn't happened. Very happy to see that bullfighting. Let's see if we can I'm going to close some of these other windows since I don't need them. Yeah, bullfighting, a real man's sport, is brought back.
The largest bullfighting arena in the world, again filled with cheering spectators.
That's a real man's sport.
Sunday saw Mexico City's first bullfight since the Supreme Court temporarily overturned an earlier suspension last month. Thousands of people cheered the return of Fiesta Brava.
The bull is bred for this. You will see the economic impact. So many jobs are generated.
That's a real proud Mexican woman right there, who loves her traditions, loves her country.
Supporters of bullfighting say the centuries
support bullfighting.
Generates $400 million a year in Mexico and holds cultural significance.
And you got these activists there who are trying to outlaw bullfighting in Mexico. I swear to God. I swear. Bullfighting is back for now. We can all rest easy. In D.C., we had China upset because apparently, Chinese students flying into Washington Dulles International Airport were being harassed by Customs and Border Patrol. So that was interesting. I haven't heard any follow-ups to that, but it was kind of like pretty ridiculous sounding. This did not circulate the mainstream media at all. Ex-IRS contractor, apparently. 5 years in jail for leaking tax records of Trump. Now, this guy didn't just leak the tax records of Trump. Somewhere in this article, it says that he leaked 8,000 tax returns related to some 7,600 people. He was running an operation. He was running a straight-up operation. And basically what it looks like, I mean, I only saw this story in the Malaysia Sun. I haven't seen it anywhere else. So this guy is like leaking thousands of tax documents, I'm sure for a price, and he's taking the fall. Obviously, someone asked him to get those tax returns of Trump's, and we'll never know who that was, most likely. But very interesting. He got 5 years, which is better than nothing, but probably not enough, honestly. For 8,000 tax returns? I mean, Jesus Christ. So, that happened. Where are we at on time? We're doing pretty good so far. I'm going to just skim over most of this. Okay, this is a good article from the Gray Zone about an investigation they're doing on some prison files from the Epstein alleged suicide that were released. I highly encourage to read that. I honestly have not read that whole article yet. I had a lot of articles posted today. I've had a rough week. My knee was all fucked up this week. My knee went septic, so I'm going to finish reading that one for sure. Okay, so there was a problem with the precision sniper mission, and everybody thought it was dead. The one going to the moon that Japan sent. Well, it was able to work for a short time because the sun hit the solar panels. I guess the solar panels were at the right angle. I don't know if they moved the solar panels or what, but they got some sunlight, and they're able to get some data from what I understand. Read about that for more. This is the article that they released when they were able to turn the machine on because it was getting sunlight on the solar panel. So that's fantastic. China fined S&P ratings unit. Interesting. China, North Korea vow to deepen ties at all levels. Okay, so there was no let up on missile testing. Okay, so China and North Korea are getting closer. This one is U.S.-China launch working group to address opioid crisis. Okay. More drama in the South China Sea. Basically, the Philippine government gave China special arrangements and was trying to cool things down. And now someone found out about it. Some hothead found out about it, and it's just drama. It's just drama. Marcos is basically carrying water for the U.S. We all know that. I mean, I used to wonder why they had so much focus on Duarte in the American media. Now I know that most of the reason that they hated Duarte so much in the Western media was because he was trying to be more balanced, take a more balanced approach to China. It's obvious that that's the case to me now. Malaysia's new king. This is an interesting article. You got to read about this king. In 2015, so the new king of Malaysia takes control. In 2015, he made headlines when he received a delivery of his custom Mac sleeper truck, replete with 2 flat-screen televisions, premium bedding and seats, lined with 72,000 stitches of gold thread. So that's pretty cool. I don't know how much that would be in terms of weight. I would think 72,000 stitches. That would be probably some. That would be some gold. That would be a fair amount. This is about the rail. I guess they're trying to make a high-speed rail between China and Thailand. So they're trying to make that work. I guess they're going to have to go through Laos or Myanmar. Never really thought of that. Yeah, somehow they're going to have to get through Laos and Myanmar at the same time. But they want to make a high-speed rail line from here to somewhere in Thailand, maybe Bangkok. I don't know. Myanmar, this is basically a puff piece on the regime change operation that's being conducted by the Western powers, U.S. and Britain, in Myanmar. So there's that. I don't pretend to know much about Myanmar, what's going on. Brian Berletic would be the best person to find to read about Myanmar. But I do know, I'm quite sure that, you know, a lot of the rebels are National Endowment for Democracy types. I mean, that's a fair assumption to make. Pakistan, Iran agreed to expand security cooperation, so they're trying to make up. There was an attack. There was a small rebel attack in Baluchistan this week. So that was just notable just because we have Baluchi on our minds. I've known about the Baluchi for a long time because of my dad. Iran and Saudi Arabia launched direct shipping line. Very interesting. Iran launches a bunch of satellites into space. Okay. This was a big one this week that I almost forgot about. So President Zelensky approached General Zaluzhny and said, "You got to resign." And General Zaluzhny refused. And thus far, General Zaluzhny is at this point still the commander of the army, Ukrainian armed forces, despite the fact that his commander-in-chief wanted him to go. So this is a very serious political crisis. What happens next? It's going to be very unpredictable. I mean, you can have the country collapse overnight in a situation like this because you got a direct challenge to the power of the president. Now, Victoria Nuland came the next day with her fat, ugly ass, and she was saying, "Oh, we're gonna get Putin." She's a psychotic woman. She's psychotic. She should be in jail or worse. I mean, she should be at a war tribunal right now. Okay. But anyway, serious political crisis in Ukraine. As of my knowledge now, Saturday afternoon, Zaluzhny is still refusing to leave his post as commanded by his commander-in-chief, President Zelensky. So this is like a coup can happen at any minute. We don't know what's going to happen. And meanwhile, Russia is just continuing to grind down the Ukrainian forces, and they're winning, and the Ukrainians are losing on every front right now. So this can get to be a very unpredictable situation. One day at a time. Tomorrow, Ukraine can be done for all we know. Okay, I don't know. It's just I doubt it. I doubt it would come to that. I think Ukraine would keep fighting, but tomorrow Zelensky can be gone. Okay, we don't know. And if he does, if something does happen to him, they're going to try and hide it because it's going to be an absolute optics disaster. The guy that we invited to the Congress to do a speech in front of Congress just a year and a half ago, we made this big show about it, and then he gets deposed. Boy, I mean, when they fall on their face, they really fall on their face, don't they? Montenegro, this is an interesting article I saw about Montenegro and crypto, trying to be a crypto paradise. I have a personal connection to Montenegro. Beautiful place. I don't care about the politics. I don't even want to talk about the politics. I don't want them mad at me, but that's an interesting article. Hungary, far right, would lay claim to neighboring region if Ukraine loses war. So this was an interesting story. Some political guy said we want the western region of Ukraine. Interesting. Austria, I love this one. Austria is actually making a lot of money. Bloomberg's all pissed off. The story is from Russia Today. But Bloomberg's all pissed off because this is just a rewrite of the Bloomberg story. They're pissed off that Austria is basically importing natural gas from Russia and selling it to Europe. This is what makes me proud to be a German right here. And you know what? If I have to start claiming Austria instead of Germany, so be it. Austria has been much more reasonable, much less retarded than Germany throughout this situation, and now they're a traditionally neutral country, and they're just much more reasonable. So maybe I'm gonna have to claim Austria now. I mean, really, there's no city in the world like Vienna, in my opinion. Beautiful city. I miss it. I yearn for it. Beautiful place. So yeah, close that so my shit doesn't freeze. And we're almost done. There's shenanigans. The EU is still talking about seizing assets. And it's like, well, they're saying, well, we want to make, if we take the assets, we want to make sure we have a legal framework. There is no legal framework for stealing in other countries' assets. There's none. It's just going to be, what's going to happen is you can cover it up with whatever legal, powdered sugar you want, okay, whatever legal dressing you want, you can cover it up. At the end of the day, countries see you do this, they're never going to want to keep their money in your banks. It's as simple as that, okay? So you can dress it up however you want, EU. Protests. Belgian farmers protest. French farmer protest. The French farmer protests have been getting pretty serious. But the French always get pretty serious about this. ICJ rejects a lawsuit or a complaint filed by Ukraine way back in 2017 or 2018. I forget what they want, but they were suing Russia, and it was completely rejected. The case goes way back to before this current phase of the war, the special military operation phase, I guess you could say, even started. Finland has a presidential election. I don't give a fuck. Norway had a really bad storm. Okay. Northern Ireland elects, will lead a Sinn Féin Irish nationalist will lead Northern Ireland's government for the first time. And that is it, folks. Oh, Clown World. I got a Clown World in red here. I love it. So we need to bring this one up. So as we know, and I covered this, basically, Soros visited the Vatican last summer, and then after that, the Pope, who was corrupt, said, okay, I think we should start consecrating gay marriage and all this. Okay. I don't care one way or the other. I really don't. But then, just recently, Pope says Africans are a special case when it comes to LGBT blessings. I just thought that was funny. They're a special case. Okay, yeah, they're saying fuck you, Pope. We don't have to like that shit. And I support the Africans 100%. Even though I used to consider myself back when gay rights activism was cool, marriage equality and all that. I would have told you I'm a gay rights activist as far as that goes. But I no longer. It became a cult. It became a cult at some point. So I want nothing. Once they started saying LGBT, I said this is a cult, right? But so he says Africans are a special case. Yeah, Africans are a special case. They'll, in some countries in Africa, they put you to death for being gay, and that's their right to do. I'm not saying I would want to live in a place like that where they're killing people over being gay. I don't think that's a very cool thing, but, Uganda is doing it. And they have a right to have their own culture. And they're telling the Catholic Church right now, fuck off, okay? We're not going to consecrate gay marriages. And so he's trying to be diplomatic here. Africans are a special case. Okay. I am done. We have covered the entire world for the week. South Africa is under a lot of pressure there. They're saying that some of the politicians are claiming that they feel insecure and threatened by pro-Israeli operatives, let's just say. That's very interesting. They're having an election soon, and the long-ruling African National Congress Party, which is Nelson Mandela's party, apparently, I'm hearing that it's in the media. They're saying that they have the toughest election they've had in a while, but they'll pull through. Malay gets a 4.7 billion IMF loan. That's why he's been kissing Ukraine's ass and all that. And I think we are done. Okay. Good one. I am out.